Hi everyone, my name's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing my July wrap-up as well as my August TBR. The reason I am mushing these videos together is, one, I haven't been putting out content consistently. There's a lot going on just in my personal life, so I just haven't had a whole lot of time to film. So, wanted to mush these together so that we didn't have to wait a while between them, and so that they both got out. But also, I didn't read a lot in July. Well, I read a lot, but a lot of huge books, so the quantity of books I have to talk about is not very much. So, I'm gonna do my July wrap-up first, and then my August TBR. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first book I read in July was The Haunting of Alejandra by V. Castro. This was a horror novel that I had an arc of, and I didn't get to it in time. So I listened to the audiobook, and the audiobook was so good. The narrator was really great. I'm very new to the horror genre as a whole. I've read a lot of Stephen King horror, but outside of that, I haven't read a whole lot. So I'm trying to slowly branch into some of the more horror side of things. This had a lot to do with Mexican folklore, and there's basically this woman who has 3 kids and is unhappy in her marriage, and she feels like she's being haunted by La Llorona. I'm probably butchering that. But it is a folklore of this woman who killed her children and herself and haunts this bridge, this river. And so she feels like she's being haunted by this woman, and she has these dark thoughts. So she starts going to see a therapist who has experience with these kind of things, and together they kind of try to tackle this haunting. And I thought it was really beautiful how it explored just being a mother, but also generational trauma. It explored a lot of really deep, dark themes, while still being a scary horror novel. So I think it was a very fun book, and I'm very glad I read it. Next up was one of my SPFBO books, and that is Necro Town by Alexander Nader. I really, really liked this book. I knew nothing about it going into it. It was a short book. It's about basically this city that is comprised of all of these supernatural beings, and it's kind of like an urban fantasy. Kind of like there's cell phones and stuff and cars and all of that, but with these supernatural beings. And we follow 2 main characters who are married, and they were my favorite part of the story because they're already married when the book starts, and the whole story is about them tackling this big problem that they're having in their town. And it is never about their relationship strife or about their drama within the relationship. They are just a team working together to solve this, and I love them so much, and I want to read the rest of this series because there's more. But yeah, I really, really liked this book. So far, probably my favorite of my SPFBO picks. I still have 3 more to go, but we'll get there. Next up, I read Dark Age by Pierce Brown. This is the 5th book in the Red Rising saga. I was reading all of them up to the release of Lightbringer. And Dark Age was phenomenal. It was very dark. It had some of my favorite character work in it. It had some really, really great moments. It was a chunker, but I was doing a drive out to Philly to visit a friend, and so I was able to listen to it on the trip there and back. And it was a really, really good book, and I was constantly wanting to listen to it, and I will get to my thoughts on Lightbringer shortly. Not in-depth thoughts, but I will get to that shortly. Next up, I read Boy's Life by Robert McCammon. This book, I had high hopes for, and it kind of didn't work for me, and I think a big part of that is that coming-of-age stories that don't have a fantasy element or something. I mean, this one had a little bit of fantasy, but coming-of-age stories just typically don't work for me. And I think the reason for that is because a lot of these coming-of-age stories that I've been reading lately, at least, take place in a time period I wasn't even alive, so I just can't relate to that, really. But a lot of the ones I've been reading lately are from the point of view of a young boy, which I already can't really relate to. So this one follows a young boy in the 60s, I believe. And so I just have nothing to relate to that, and my childhood was nothing like this childhood, so it didn't give me like nostalgia or anything. Like I feel like a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia for coming of age stories, and I just didn't have that with this. Not to say it was a bad book. It was beautifully written. I gave it 4 stars. The ending was really beautiful. You get to see him grown up. So overall, I did enjoy the book. It tackled some difficult themes of race in the South in the 60s. And I think it did a decent job of that. But overall, it didn't really work for me, just because it is really hard for me to relate to coming of age stories a lot of the time. And this was one of those times. Not to say I need to relate to every single book I read, but if it's outside of a genre that I'm typically reading, it has to really hit for me, and this one just didn't. Now, another Robert McCammon book. Next, I read Swan Song, and this was the best book I read in the month of July. This book was phenomenal. So, this book is a post-apocalyptic story. It is very, very similar to The Stand, if you've read The Stand by Stephen King. A lot of times I feel like comparisons are made between books, and then they are not alike at all. These two have a lot of similarities. They are a very, very similar story. This one was much shorter. I haven't read The Stand in probably 10, 12 years, so I don't remember a whole lot about the very minute details of it, but I remember the basic gist. But this one is basically during the Cold War, kind of like during the Cold War, there is a nuclear fallout, and it's just kind of the story of what life would be like after that, with most of the world dying. And I think it did a great job of exploring all the nuances of that, let alone just the societal impact, but also just like what the physical consequences are of a nuclear fallout, cancer, things like that. But there was also a lot of fantasy elements involved, and the twist at the end I did not see coming at all. I cried. This story was very impactful, very good. It explored a lot of different family dynamics. It had a lot of found family because most people's families died. It had fantasy elements that I feel like really added to the story as opposed to being a distraction. Overall, this book was phenomenal. I totally get why people love it. I also get why it's compared to The Stand, but I don't know which one's better because I haven't read The Stand in a very long time, so I don't want to compare. But they are very, very, very similar. I mean, The Stand was not a nuclear fallout, it was a flu, but similar premise. But this one, I feel like, did a really good job of tying in all of these different elements. So that's all the books I read in July. Short list, I know, but they were all huge. Also, I have my window open, so sorry about the airplane noises. So for August, it is already August 5th, so I have already finished one book, and that is Lightbringer by Pierce Brown. I will go more into my thoughts on this, either in a dedicated review, I might do a dedicated review, and if not, I'll go into it in my wrap-up for August. But this book was far and away the best book in the Red Rising saga, and I kept saying every time I read a Red Rising book that I don't think this series will ever be a favorite series, but I was enjoying it. This book alone might have brought it into a favorite series for me. This book was absolutely stunning. Also, this Barnes & Noble exclusive edition has this artwork in it that is perforated, so you can tear it out and hang it up or whatever. So that's really cool. But overall, this book was just chef's kiss perfection. A book I'm currently reading that I've been reading for in 4 days I will be reading it for one whole calendar month, and that is House of Chains by Steven Erikson. This book is so long. I'm almost done with it. My Kobo says I have 2 hours left to read the ebook, so I'm close to done. I feel like I have an issue where when it takes me this long to read a book, I start to not want to read it. And it's mostly my fault that I haven't been reading. I've been, again, personal life has been kicking my butt, and so I haven't had as much time or energy to read. So read physically. I've been doing a lot of audiobooks. I'm flying through audiobooks at work. But when I get home at night, I'm too tired to pick up a book and read. So it's taken me a long time to read this book. Granted, this book is, hold on, I have the word count here, 306,000 words. So it is also just a huge book. I'm hoping to finish the book today or tomorrow sometime. My mom is coming tomorrow to visit, so I probably won't get to read again for a couple days after that. But I'm hoping to finish this book today or tomorrow. It is the 4th book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen series. I am hosting a read-along of this series with Alex from Tall Guy Reads and Pat from Pat's Mythos, whose channels I will link down below. Overall, it is a very good book. There are certain parts of it that I'm liking a lot more than others, but I will say this book so far has been the easiest to follow as I'm reading. Although we are starting to get, people had warned me about this, but we are starting to get a lot of the characters using a different name now, or characters going by something else, and trying to keep track of who is getting very hard. So I'm trying to remember who this person is, because they've changed their name. I think, off the top of my head, I can think of 2 people that have changed names, who are pretty big characters. I'm trying to keep track of who they are, what they did in previous books, what name they've changed to, why they've changed their name. It's a lot to keep track of, and I'm not taking notes or anything. I don't want to take notes or anything. So I have found myself going to the Malazan wiki and checking, because you can like look from which book, so you don't like get spoilers. So I'm trying to keep track of everyone, and I think that's also part of the reason I'm having a hard time picking this book up, is because it takes so much brain power to read this book that sometimes I'm just too tired to put in that much thinking reading. So excited to be done with this book. Again, I am still really enjoying it. It's just, I'm very busy right now in life, and reading this complex of a book has been a challenge. But we did meet Karsa in this book, and I absolutely love every Karsa chapter. So anyway, next was my patron pick, which I'm already pretty far into, and that is the book that Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. I am loving this book. I'm like 63% into the audiobook, I think. I had a arc of this that I didn't get to, so I'm listening to it so I can do my NetGalley review. This book I'm really loving. A lot of people said that the first 70% is kind of slow and they aren't sure about it, and then it picks up. I have not experienced that. I have loved it from the get-go. It's just the perfect story, that the kind of story I really like. It's based in libraries. You follow like a teen. There's different basically worlds. You're following 2 different timelines, basically. Well, 2 different people in 2 different, you aren't sure, like if there are dimensions, different timelines, you aren't sure. So it's just a very interesting story that is perfect for something I like to read. So I'm really liking it so far. Next up is 2 audiobooks that I've checked out from the library. I'm trying to catch up on some NetGalley arcs that I missed the publication date of, and it's easier right now for me to listen to audiobooks, so I'm checking them out as audiobooks, flying through them, leaving my review, trying to get that NetGalley rating up, because I think mine is like 30%. So the first one I have is To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Monoquill Blackgoose. I don't know a lot about this, but it's got a dragon on the cover. So we all know I like to go into books not really knowing what it's about, so I don't have much to say about it. I'm excited for it because it's got a dragon on the cover, so I'm shallow. Dragon, I'm in. Next up is a romance, and it is Fake It Till You Bake It by Jamie Wesley. This came out an embarrassingly long time ago. I've had this arc for a very long time, and I kind of just haven't been reading a lot of romance lately. Romance is a genre I do really love. I just have been very focused on fantasy because I've had a lot of buddy reads, read-alongs, whatever. So I haven't read a whole lot of romance lately. So I figured this would be a perfect time to read this book because I need to get it out of the way. I need to get it off my NetGalley, pending or to be read or whatever. I need to get it off there. But also I think it'll be cute. It'll be a good palate cleanser. It's short. I've been reading a lot of large books, so this one is shorter, and I think it'll be nice to just kind of switch up the genre, try something new, and I've heard good things about it. And I love baking, so I think overall I will like it. The last 3 books are the physical books I have to read. These are all SPFBO books. This is my last month to read them. I have no idea how long these books are, but I'm kind of hoping they're short because I have to read all 3 this month. So first up I have Anakisha's Dragon by Eileen Mueller. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Again, don't know a lot about it. There's a dragon. So say less, you know. Then I have The Yochni's Eye by Abigail Morrison. Don't know much about this. And I have Fated Born by Kristen L. Hamblin. Don't know much about this. I know this is not great content, me just saying I don't know what these books are about. But I do promise I will, either in wrap-ups or in a dedicated SPFBO video, I will actually talk about what these books are about after I've read them. I hope to do an SPFBO wrap-up video where I just talk about all 6 books I read for SPFBO and discuss which one is going to be my winner. I know that we are going to do, as a group, as Bookborn's group, we are going to do a video where we choose our semi-finalist. So this video will have to come out after that, or I can just put it out before without saying which one I choose. Anyway, so I will be getting into further in depth what these books are about, my thoughts on them, all of that, once I've read all of them. So these three I don't know a whole lot about, but I am still really excited to read them. I am a noob when it comes to self-published fantasy, and so when Bookborn asked me to join her team for this, I jumped on the chance to expand my horizons and get out of traditional published books a little bit and try out some new things. I'm very glad I did. I have found at least one new favorite so far, so very excited to read these. 2 dragon books this month, so that's cool. We all know how much I love dragons, and read an absolutely stunning book already. So it's already starting out pretty good. I know this is a lot of books on my TBR. I'm hoping, once I knock out these books, I'm hoping that my September can be mood read. I can just mood read. I want to mood read so bad because the past like 4 months have just been so structured that I think it's been a struggle for me to read at all because I'm just reading what I have to read. So I want September to be a mood read month. I'm knocking out these books in August. Granted, some of these books in August I don't have to read. Like the NetGalley ones, there's no obligation to read these this month. I'm just trying to knock them out because I think I will actually like them. And it will be less pressure on my shoulders. So anyway, all of that to say, I'm excited for these books in August. I'm excited to get through SPFBO and choose my semi-finalist. I'm hoping that it is the hardest decision. I'm hoping I have so many that I just absolutely love and I have the hardest time choosing. I've already read 3 that were all very good books, and I'm hoping these last 3 are also. So that is all the books I read in July and all the books I hope to read in August. If you could please like, comment, and subscribe, let me know down below what was your favorite book in July and what are you most looking forward to in August. If you really like my content, please hit the notification bell to be notified every time I post new videos. Also, my Patreon is linked down below if you want to help choose my monthly TBR, as well as some patron-exclusive reading sprints, etc., etc. You can join down below. As always, your support means the world to me, and until next time, thank you guys.